Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, good morning to all of you. Um, I've got that message from the host that I think I can start my class. So it's going on streaming. I have one student, Bhargav. Uh, okay, I will start the class straight away now. Let me close the chat. Okay, right. Okay. So we have in today's uh, today I will be teaching you block 4 instead of block 3. Because in sequence, what happens, the block 4 comes first, then the block 3 comes later in the print production, in the production sequence, in the sequence of the production of corporate publications. So unless we know this, we should not go to the next thing. So in the syllabus, it is slightly block 4. Block 3 should come actually in the place of block 4. Block 4 should be in the place of 3. But all said and done, we will discuss today in sequence of how actually a publication is produced. And as a PRO, you are supposed to know how you are going to actually, see the production of a corporate publication in a particular sequence. So as per the sequence, I am going through this particular thing. And so today you see here, block 4, if we have time, we will see, we hope to finish it by unit 9 and 10 if we have time. I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation exclusively for you people so that it's easy for you to understand. I hope you can save it as you are seeing it. I think you can save each slide or perhaps later take it from the university people. So this is for easy understanding from examination point of view also. And you can have, then you can be able to easily understand because I'm giving some examples in the slide presentation that I'm going to give you. So let me first share the screen and then you will be able to understand. So in the block 4, unit 9 and 10, we will be seeing it. Okay, right. Now let me share the screen. So I'm now screening. I'm already started screening the file for you. And as you see the first slide, we are going to discuss about typography and composing and unit 10 proofreading. As you can see, I have deliberately put one small illustration because too much of gap there will give, so as if something is missing. So in order to fill that, we can always put sometimes decorative ornament or sometimes something which is related to some illustration I have given deliberately to balance the layout of this particular slide. We're going to discuss about layout also later. So I have used this deliberately. So see what happens if I remove it. Okay. What happens if I remove it? Okay. You see here, there's too much of gap here. So that gives a very bad thing as if something is missing in between. Instead, what I did was to get this thing done like this. So there is some completeness in the design of this slide. And we are slowly trying to learn practically how designing is done. So I would like each one of you to bestow greater attention for this session because I'll be a bit technical, though I'll try my best to be as non-technical as possible. But as you know, wherever I am helpless, I have no choice than being helpless. So I want all of you to concentrate. Little bit of mathematics is there, so please concentrate in seeing the slides and simultaneously listening to what I am trying to say. And there is no point otherwise if I keep on going on this. So let me see the first slide. As you know, this is actually typography and composing. Composing, many times what happens, people are, a layman think composing means songs are composed. Songs are also composed. So this has nothing to do with songs. This is actually composing in those days is nothing but assembling the letters, like how you type the letters into words and then words into lines, lines into paragraphs, so on and so forth. So composing is that particular task where the operator, or earlier days, because he was composing, was known as compositor, used to pick up those individual letters like how Gutenberg did, the inventor of printing. So each letter used to be picked up individually into words and then into lines and so on and so forth. That is the reason why we have this composing. So all of you, for all practical purposes, are doing composing, but that now in the modern terminology, we are calling it as keyboarding, as typesetting, as data entry. So all these terms are akin or similar to the old historical conventional word which we used to, you know, we used to apply in what is known as composing. So that is one thing we will be discussing, and how the why they go hand in hand. So this is the first thing. So we are going to discuss about typography. Now, what exactly we mean by that? We mean by typography is that we use though each letter that you are seeing in any text of any publication, and all different types of publications that we have, that. So what we are trying to discuss in this particular unit is the study of types. Now, what is this type? You are all known because you're all born with computer background. Literally, from right from your birth, you're used to computer access. Unlike the older generation like me, who was used to something where we never had anything known as computer. But we used to call the types, whereas the modern day people like you call the same thing as a font. So a font is nothing, as you see, a letter. So these types, study of these types is known as the as typography, and it is itself an art as you see it, and a technique of actually printing with movable type. In earlier days, we used to have what is known as a movable type. It was called movable because each letter was a 1 inch metal piece with the letter above, like you see in any rubber stamp, above and reverse. So R, for instance, is laterally reversed. So, for instance, this I gave you the example of rubber stamp so that you understand that the letters are above and the entire metal piece about less than 1 inch, just less than 1 inch, is what each piece, each letter used to be like that. So imagine so many letters were assembled by a man. He used to assemble it, and that's why we used to call him as compositor. And because he used to do it by hand, he was known as hand compositor. So imagine in 15th century, when the first Bible was printed, they took their own time. Okay, they took their own time in printing the Bible because each letter was assembled by a compositor into, so all letters were assembled into words, into lines, into all are loose pieces. So they used to tie the entire page in the form of a thread, and then they used to take a print. If there was any one small lapse on the part of this composer, the whole page will collapse. Again, he'll have to reassemble the whole thing. So you can imagine the kind of trauma they had gone through, the rigors of that in those days. So typography is the study of a font. Why should we study about this? Why should a PRO know about this? Does it really make a difference? I will tell you as we go along. So when we arrange these types, okay, it involves selecting a typeface, like for instance, the headline for a news story or for something you are using for your magazine, poster, hoarding, or anything. So we will be discussing a lot about typefaces, point size, line length. Okay, we call that as leading also, letter spacing, space between the letters, and adjusting the space. within letter space. So we have got these things that are going to be discussed as we go along. I will also be showing you some of the examples. So typography is the study of types where we use typefaces, and you know that there is a blank space between the words, between the lines, between the paragraphs, between the columns in a newspaper. If you see a newspaper, there is a space between two columns. So that is also a space. So that is known as white space. Anything where you not use the type, it is known as a blank space or white space. So wherever type is used, it gets onto the print, and that becomes what is known as the typeface. So this unit, we will try to discuss what we mean by typography. Now, we all should know one basic thing, that actually typography is nothing but a combination of font. How big is the letter? What is the typeface you have used? You are already used to so many fonts in your Microsoft Word. You might have seen Calibri, you might have seen Helvetica, you might have seen Times New Roman, Bookman Old Style, Garamond, okay, Badoni, Rockwell. So many names of fonts are available right on your computer. When you click your mouse, you will be able to get so many variety of fonts. So this particular study of typography or study of types involves what font you have selected, what is the size of that particular thing, what is the space you are giving between the lines or between the letters or between the words, and are you using any color to give any specific, message. So this is a dangerous. So maybe this is dangerous. Dangerous, you may print in red color because to indicate danger. So please remember, typography speaks louder than words. So there are some expressions that come out of this typefaces. That's why we call them as faces, typefaces. Why we call them as typefaces? Because human faces have expressions. Typefaces have expressions, but silently. Human faces may have expressions with sound or action also. But types are like silently they express. They express. So they speak sometimes louder than words. A typeface can create that kind of an impact on a reader, and then he can understand the message. Why he used a big font? Why he used a small font? Why he used a particular thing? So next time, when you see a poster or a hoarding or a title cover of a magazine or any publication that you come across on day-to-day basis, see the page from typographic point of view. This is very, very important for us. From typographic point of view. Why, sir, do we have to give? Yes, it can make all the difference in enabling the reader or not enabling the reader to read. After all, the very purpose of our text is to send a message across. How will you ensure that the message has reached and it has been read by the reader? One of the ways is through typography. Though you may say, why don't you read that? You may say that. No, but even without your telling, if he is able to read something, maybe let us take two advertisements. Why is that one person has read one advertisement and ignored the other one? Yeah, you may say because he is interested in the product, maybe he is interested to know and all that. But quite possible, the types used in this particular advertisement might have drawn his attention to a greater level than he would have used if he had used any other type. So please remember, people who select this type, people who are carrying out this task of ensuring that right font is used for a right text, for a right publication, at a right place. All this is done by people who are known as either Typographic designers, or mostly they are known as graphic designers. So the guy who sits in front of the computer with the knowledge of this graphic designing, with the knowledge of layout, with the knowledge of types, typefaces, type fonts, type measurements, then he is the person who knows what exactly the reader is expecting uh, through typography. So don't underestimate the importance of typography. I remember about 30 years back, there used to be a BA honors typography course, 4 year full-time course only for typography in London School of Printing. Then you can imagine the magnitude of the significance of this particular subject known as typography. So having said that, we will now move to the next slide. Now we'll see what we mean. I was telling you that these types or the characters or the letters that you have for the text that you have produced. Now your journalist or your editor prepares a beautiful page, very beautiful content. Such a beautiful content, very interesting, and no reader would like to miss it. But that is not sufficient unless you use a particular font which is convenient for the reader to read, to be attracted, and to read it in totality, in completeness. So if there is a font which is not conducive, which is not agreeable to your eye, you may read one paragraph and set it aside, even if the content is very good. Let us assume that you read a novel, a very exciting crime thriller, but after reading about a couple of pages, you're putting it aside because even though the story is exciting, interesting, you're putting it aside because that font that has been used for, say, that particular novel may have not really, suited your eye, or for that matter, any other reader's eyes also. So it's a very big subject, highly research based. But any designer, by virtue of his experience, he sees this, what is known as, font. So what is a font? It's a complete set of type of one size and face. Now, when I say one complete set means A to Z capital letters, then A to Z, we do not call small letters. It has got a technical name known as lowercase letters. So we call the small one, for instance, C. In this letter C, S is capital, okay? And then E, for instance, this all other letters are known as, all these letters are known, wait, let me, now all these letters are known as, I will type it for you and then delete it. Lowercase. This is a technical term that is used. Don't say small letters because small conveys a different meaning. Small may convey a meaning of size. Small letters means people may think the size of the letter is small. So for instance, if you see in this here, this entire two lines are in all capitals. Okay. Now this sentence you can see is capitals and lowercase. Okay. Capitals and lowercase. For instance, you see here, I will highlight this area. This is only lowercase. Okay. Here, which is capital F. All other letters in this line are lowercase except F. So this is the terminology we use. So now we'll go to next slide and then come back to this slide because a little bit of mathematics is there. Because when I said one size and face, now you will discuss about size part of it. Now you see, all the letters are measured, like how you measure. All of us know what is a measurement. When we want to measure something, we describe it in millimeters, centimeters, decimeter, meter, and of course, kilometer, and so on and so forth. Or we may say inches also. So like that, if we want to describe the size of a type, okay, if we want to describe the size of the type, okay, we have to have I am in the class, Amma. I'll call you at 11 o'clock. I'll call you at 11 o'clock. So font is so please remember, when we see so every letter has a size and we describe that in a size. So your PRO cannot tell you, put it in bigger size and smaller size. He has to be specific. He can mention it. So similarly, when you say measurement, so get me a long paper. You'll have to tell the size, no, A4 paper, or bigger paper A3, or still bigger A2, or smaller paper A5. Why are you telling that? You are telling so that there is no confusion with regard to the measurement of, say, any particular. So we make use of units to describe whenever we need a particular size. Now we'll just go to the next slide and then we will see what we mean by that. So how is type is now measured in points? How big is the type? For instance, let me take for instance here. All of you know the thing that you see in your here, let me go to home and come back. And here you are seeing now this Calibri body, for instance, you're seeing that is known as typeface. And what you're seeing here, the numbers that you're seeing here, for instance, is so many, all these numbers are nothing but points. So if I take, for instance, a letter called 72, so I put here, say for instance, I put M, okay? Then in that only I use capital letter. What is this? Now what I have used is 72 point capitals and lowercase. Now the same thing if I want to use, I can use the size. So I am measuring the size. So I have used, for instance, here, for instance, I've used, now let me see whether how much I have used. Okay, it's come to 61. Let me go to 72, sorry. So 72, you see here, for instance, I'll make it.
So it is page 89, sir. Role of typography.
What exactly we mean by I think it's not going. Sorry. 1 minute. So you can see, for instance, the size of the letter I'm going to type. This is the size of the letter. I can reduce the size. So I can say, for instance, this is comes in 60 point. Okay. Now let me change it for say, and now type here. So now you see what happened. This is 60 point. This is 12 point. So the size is measured in a unit known as points. Now, where did you get these points from? That's very important for us. So these points are derived from 1 inch. So all of you know what is 1 inch. So 1 inch, if you break it into 72 equal parts, each part is known as a point. So when next time when your editor says or when your PRO says, please set the headline in 1 inch. 1 inch, then don't get surprised. What he means is 72 points. Or he may say, he may describe it in half inch, which means 36 points. Or he may say, put it in 48 points. Now, where are these points coming from? All of you can go here and see. Now, this is here, all these numbers indicate points. So, these are older than the millimeters that we got, than the inches that we got later. So, please remember the measurement of of these types is expressed in what is known as point. So what is the point? So there is some mathematical relationship. So there are 72 points in 1 inch, which means if you take 1 inch letter, 72 points are there. You all may not have been born, but I was born and I think I was a 69, maybe 69 or something, about 13 years or 12 years, I'm not able to remember exactly. When man landed on moon, Armstrong landed on moon, the entire newspaper, one full page, the entire page of the newspaper had what is known as man on moon. He said man, one line, on, next line, moon, third line. Man on moon. Can you imagine that these 3 lines were set in 2 inch. 2 inch means 144 points. So big letters were used because that's one of the epoch making. That one of the biggest historical developments we had for the world history. So at that time they used a very big font, and that font measured 2 inches, which means 144 point is the size of the letter. And when we say size of the letter, all of you please remember, when I say size of the letter, okay, uh, it means, for instance, I will show you here. One slide, we'll come back. From the top to the bottom, this is known as the size of the letter. So if you measure this, this is measured in what is known as types. This is the fundamental thing that you should know, whether you are a PRO or whether you are a journalist or whether you are a publisher or whether you are related to print medium directly or indirectly. This is the fundamental thing that you should know, because you will at any one given time of point, even if you are in HR department, at any one time of point, you will have the responsibility of getting a publication produced. So in the production of corporate publication, this is the basic thing that one needs to know. So there are 72 points in 1 inch. It's automatically by practice. Now, when you take out 12 such points, there is one bigger unit. You know, all of us know we have millimeters and then we have centimeters. When there is heavy rain, they describe in centimeters. 2.5 centimeters rain, which means 25 millimeters. So why do you say use bigger unit? So that when you have big, you will use. So for instance, from my house to say to ECI is about 2 kilometers. So if I can also mention it in millimeters, but it's too big a figure at that time. So it will say 2 lakh millimeters. If I say, it sounds odd. So we use bigger unit. Okay, we use bigger unit like M or pica. 12 such points make one pica or M. So simple mathematics is that when you divide 72 by 12, you get there are 6 picas in 1 inch. So if you say 72 points in 1 inch is correct, then 12 points is 1 pica. Then if you say 6 picas per 1 inch is also correct. You can say 72 points in 1 inch, that is correct. And that is also equally correct when you say there are 6 picas or m's, because 72 can be divided by 12 with no remainder. And that's why we're getting 6 picas. This is the simplest basic, that's all, nothing more we have in this particular session. We have no more mathematics as such. But this is important for you to understand as to how, why we need this. Now, why do we need these points and these picas? Where do you use them? Why should you need it? So are we having in a page smaller measurements, bigger measurements? Yes. See, I'll tell you one thing. I can measure this pencil, a pencil maybe in centimeters or maybe in inches. But if I need to measure a pipe from here to Secunderabad station, I will definitely describe it in kilometers. I will not describe. So 400-kilometer pipe was laid, we see in the newspaper. So we use bigger units. Similarly, in a page, in a printed page, do we have bigger measurements? Do we have smaller measurements? That is the reason why we have a smaller unit known as point and a bigger unit known as a pica, or it has got another name, EM, not CM. Please remember EM. EM is the new thing that you're learning for the first time in your life. So this is the basic of what is known as typography. So I have given you what is the significance of this point and M. So for small measurements, point is used to describe. Okay, the small measure point is used to describe, for instance, the size of the letter. I showed you just now the size of the letter, big M, small m. So we describe that in point. Or sometimes, you can always see, for instance, the space between the lines. Now here you see there are 3 lines here. There is a space between the lines. That is also measured in points. It's a blank space. It is known as white space. And that is also measured in points. Now, in a news, when you are writing also, you may write very close or you may give enough space between the lines. Some people give too much space while writing an answer paper. Too much space they give, or some people give too less. But no, you are supposed to give the required amount of space between the lines, because the reader will be able to read the lines, comfortably, safely, conveniently, easily. Then only you will be able to read. So there is a standard amount of space between the lines, that is also measured in points, or the the starting of the paragraph. Some people push it, they put a tab and then they start their paragraph by giving some space. That space also can be measured in points. Or sometimes the space between the columns, we have a space, a white space between the columns we have to give, otherwise we will start reading the entire thing. So there is a space between these columns, these are all known as columns. And that space, for instance, or the space between the lines, or here, for instance, I have two paragraphs, the space between the paragraphs. All these are measured in a smaller unit known as points. So please remember, this is the basics that you should know. But bigger measurements are also there on a page, like the length of the line. How long is your line? How small is your line? You are not measuring that in points, but rather in ems. Or your editor, the modern editor, may say in inches or even in centimeters. Centimeters can be converted into inches and vice versa. So 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch, or 25.4 millimeters is 1 inch. Likewise, we have 6 picas is also equal to 1 inch. So I can describe the line. So your editor or someone may say, please set a 36, or he may say a 36 m line. 36 m line means 6 inches. So if he says 20 m line means it is how much? So you divide it by 6 and then you will get that. So 6 4 24 m is the length of the line, then it means it is 4 inches. So your editor may say 4-inch line, because he may not be knowing what is pica or m. He may say 4-inch line, but you know that 4 inch is nothing but 24 picas or m's. So this measurement is used to describe the length of the, to describe, there's a mistake, to describe the length of the line or depth of a page or a newspaper column. For depth of a page means how big is the page. For instance, the newspaper page is very big. The tabloid is small. There's a smaller measurement. Pocket Bible has a smaller measurement. A bigger book can have a coffee table book has a bigger measurement. So all these bigger measurements, like the length of the line, like the depth of the page, like the length of the column, okay, like the width of the page, all these things are measured in a bigger unit of the point, uh, and that is known as pica or m. So this is the basics that you need to know. I spent more time on these slides so that you are in a position to understand. If you have got any doubts, you can feel free to ask me. I don't know how many are there. There are about 2 people here. In case you have any doubts, you can stop me. You can, you can always stop, and then I'll definitely tell you. Otherwise, I'll just go on. Okay. Now, this is all about the basics of typography. Unless you don't know this, you're not going to move forward in selecting. So we will see what exactly are this, typography. Is that how tricky the letters are, the font that you use, and that we will study as we go. In the end of this unit, you will be wondering, your PRO's role will come at that time. Is we have what you call it, every letter has a particular thing known as a structure. And why should you know? You should know because these letters matter a lot. These fonts matter a lot for a reader. Some fonts are very good, some fonts are not so good, some fonts are not at all good, some fonts are excellent. But to understand whether a font is really good to your eye, you should also know a little bit of this font, how it is actually designed originally, how there's so many fonts. They have put a lot of hard work to understand the design of the letter. So we have this, for instance, a bar here. We have here this protrusion at the end of this thing as known as serif, SERIF. So we have a counter, the gap here, the O, that is known as the counter. Just as how you have a counter in a bank, a hole is there, no? You put your hand to take your money. Like that, this is known as, this gap is known as a counter. So P lo kuda idi counter ikkada undi. Ikkada G lo counter undi, A lo counter undi, R lo counter ledu, P lo counter undi. ఎక్కడైనా అన్ని చోట్ల కవర్ అయింది అన్ని కౌంటర్ అంటారు. ఇంచులో దీన్ని కౌంటర్ అంటారు. ఓకే, అన్ని కవర్ అయి ఉండాలి. ఇప్పుడు అన్ని 3 సైడ్లు కవర్ అయి ఉంది, ఇక్కడ అన్ని సైడ్లు కవర్ అయి ఉంది, ఇక్కడ కవర్ అయి ఉంది, ఇక్కడ కవర్ అయి ఉంది, ఇక్కడ కవర్ అయి ఉంది, మిగతా దాంట్లో కవర్ అయ్యింది. సో దట్ ఈస్ నోన్ యాజ్ కౌంటర్. సో వీ హ్యావ్ వాట్ ఈస్ నోన్ యాజ్ అసెండర్, అంటే కొన్ని లెటర్స్ పైకి వెళ్తాయి, కొన్ని లెటర్స్ కిందికి కూడా వెళ్తాయి. P లో కిందికి వెళ్తుంది, H లో పైకి వెళ్తుంది. దాన్ని ఎసెంటర్ అంటారు, దీన్ని డిసెంటర్ అంటారు. కరెక్ట్ గా ఈ మధ్యలో ఉన్న లెటర్స్ దీన్ని మనం ఎక్స్ హైట్ అంటాం. సో ఓ ఎక్స్ హైట్ లెటర్ ఫర్ ఇన్స్టెన్స్. ఓకే, వై ఈజ్ ద డిసెండింగ్ లెటర్, వై ఈజ్ ద డిసెండింగ్ లెటర్, ఓ ఈజ్ ఎక్స్ హైట్ లెటర్. ఎక్స్ హైట్ అంటే కరెక్ట్ గా ఇక్కడ చూడండి, ఏ కూడా ఎక్స్ హైట్ లెటర్, హెచ్ అసెండింగ్ లెటర్, ఇక్కడ ఓ, ఓకే, ఏ అండ్ ఆర్ ఫర్ ఇన్స్టెన్స్ ఆర్ వాట్ ఈస్ నోన్ యాజ్ ఎక్స్ హైట్ లెటర్. ఇక్కడ ఉంది ఎక్స్ హైట్ లెటర్. సో దిస్ ఇస్ బేసిక్. మీకు ఎందుకు తెలియాలి అంటే ఫాంట్స్ వాడేటప్పుడు we will be able to know why a particular font is not good for a publication, why it is good for some other kind of a publication also. So where do you use these fonts? We use fonts for different kinds of works. Now when I give you the example, you will understand, oh, this is why it is called like that. Let me tell you one small example. For instance, the selecting a font for typesetting is a tricky affair because in your document, we need to know how we are using these fonts. At the same time, we are not using fonts like a khichdi. We can make all fonts mix and then make a khichdi out of it. We don't do it. Only now and then we do it. Okay. For instance, we have some sort of a uniformity when we are trying to select the fonts. So please remember, selection of font in a publication is there are no strict rules for me. Use this only, use this only. Is something which is linked to creativity, is something which is linked to art, is something which is linked to uniformity. All these things come into play when we are trying to select a font. But always remember, there is a purpose for a font. Why should you use that? There is an appropriateness for the font. So there is some relationship between the font and the content that you are using. Now I'll tell you one small example. Suppose there is your title page. All of you know who is Mike Tyson, for instance. So I'll just put this man, Mike Tyson, a great boxer, world famous boxer. Okay. Mike Tyson is a world famous boxer. And I use, say, for instance, Mike Tyson, a big, good in size. Suppose it's a book about Mike Tyson. Okay, I will use this all capitals. I'll use bold. There is a reason for me to use this because this font indicates that it indicates strength. It is appropriate to refer to Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is a very tough guy. A very bold guy doesn't mean he's dark in complexion as such, but he is the guy who is very tough. So for instance, I have used here a tough font. So is the case with, for instance, I can use when I'm describing, maybe I'm describing the beauty of Aishwarya Rai or maybe beauty of a flower. Then I have to also use a delicate font there. I can think of, for instance, I can use a very delicate font there. So what is the delicate font? For instance, I can use, let me tell you what I can use. Let me select some delicate font for you, and then you will be able to understand. For instance, I can use this, for instance, and I can say, or I can say, anything that is delicate. For instance, the flowers are very delicate. They get withered very fast, or they're very tender, they're very light. I can use, for instance, this font if necessary, if I want to use for this particular thing. So, for instance, for Mike Tyson, I have used, if you see, LNT fellow uses italic bold. You see LNT, they use italic bold. So what they mean is they are bold at the same time they're delicate, for instance. So there is a way of using fonts and it has some relationship with the content that we are trying to use. Okay, that is what we mean by appropriateness of the font. So you should be able to know what is the document for which you are selecting a particular font. It may look like an acid test for you, but over a period of time, as you keep producing more publications, you and your graphic designer will have the same wavelength. We both will agree, okay, this is the font will look which will look better and this and that. And we will go as we go along, I will tell you at the same time what is house style and other things. So always remember what are these typefaces? Where have we got this from? Historically, so many typefaces have been designed, and there are now so many fonts. You will be getting confused which font to use. There are hundreds of fonts, but to make them easy to understand, what we have done is we have classified them into five groups. So we classified historically also right from 16th century onwards. We have been getting fonts, right from that time, with very famous font, which you can find in your own computer system also when you click. And as we go along, that's why I have deliberately prepared some slides for you to understand each font so that you know, okay, these fonts have got some specific relationship between their name or between those things that we are able to use. Now, for instance, we classified them into a very broad category known as, we have used them into very broad category known as, a five groups. We have broken them into five groups. And one such group is, first one is known as, for instance, geometric, sans. The sans is a French word meaning without. So the word sans means S-A-N-S is nothing but a French word and it means without. So what is without here? Now we have seen in our this slide, for instance, we have seen in this slide what is known as a serif here. You see here serif, we are having some protrusion. So are you having the same protrusions here? No. So this is known as sans serif, for instance. That is, sans means without serif. So for instance, you all might have been using, if you see in your system, there is one font known as Futura. If you see Futura, now this is known as a geometric, all fonts which come under geometric category. So they are all known as geometric sans. You see why they call geometric? Because you see the way the letters are so accurately, so uh, designed with so much of precision. You can see the geometric qualities in each letter, and that's why it is known as geometric sans. One such example is Futura. Futura is the name of a font. You can find it in your computer also. Similarly, like that, we have got another category known as humanist sans font. Humanist is also like we have geometric sans, we have humanist sans, and here is, for instance, Gill sans is the name of a font. And as you see, it is a sans serif typeface. So there is no serif in this. You know what is serif? Once again, I'll show you. This is serif. So these are all serif fonts, and whereas these are all sans serif fonts. So this is another category. All the fonts are classified. One such example is Gill sans. You can also try to find out there are nearly 10 popular fonts under each group. I'm trying to give you the most well-known font. So under geometric, there is a Futura. So click in your computer, you will get this font. Click in your computer, you will get this font known as Gill sans. Is also used quite frequently. Another one is what is known as Old Style. Old Style is a very beautiful font that has been designed, and even today, most of the publishers are using these fonts. They are all, everybody, most of these publishers like Macmillan, Penguin, all these publishers are still producing books with this font, mostly novels, very easy to read, very convenient to read. Is one beautifully designed font known as, for instance, so old style is another category under which we have got many fonts. Two such fonts which are very popular, which you can see in your own computer. I'm trying to give you from your computer. So which means any text can be set in all these fonts, in all these fonts. So this is another category under which, or a classification under which fonts are there. And that classification name is known as old style font. And the examples are Garamond. Next time, please see in your computer you will find Garamond, as well as you will find Bookman Old Style. It's a very beautiful font. I often use Bookman Old Style because it looks good. I will tell you later what are the drawbacks that we have with a font. So this is another category. So we have used now three categories, namely the geometric sans, namely the humanist sans, and namely the old style, font. Then we'll also see what is the next stuff known as transitional. What is transitional? The old style, and then now we have modern fonts. In between, a little bit of old style, a little bit of the future modern style is known as transitional font. So transitional font, for instance, is a very good popular name is Baskerville. You can always see in Google also type examples of transitional font. You will get about 4 or 5 fonts. One such font is what is known as Baskerville. So you will get it in your computer also. Whatever you can get in your computer, you can see so that you can authenticate what I'm trying to say with what exactly is mentioned in your course material. So this is what we mean by Baskerville, a transitional font. So this is another beautiful font which is used uh, quite a number of times for bookworks, for anything. In those days, maybe 18th century, 19th century, 20th, we have been using this centuries old fonts that have been there for hundreds of years. And why they are continuing? Because readers have got used to this kind of a font. They find it very useful, very convenient, very easy, less straining, less strenuous. So that is the reason these fonts are all very much. So another fourth classification. First classification, let's go back, is geometric sans. Next is humanist sans. And next is old style. And the next one is transitional. And the next one is what is known as modern font. The present day scenario. So this is geometrical in a way. This has some relationship with geometric because everything is mathematically or geometrically designed in such a way. But it is called modern because here the serifs are very thin, the strokes are big, the stems are very big, thick, I mean, and these strokes are very thin. You can see the serif. So all this serif. So this is a serif font. We have seen Baskerville serif font. We have seen Garamond serif font. You see here Garamond, we have seen it as a serif font. Bookman old style serif. Baskerville serif. Badoni serif. So this is another fourth category. Sorry, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have what is known as uh, the the uh, the modern font also. So modern font can be included into what is known as modern are thick and thin strokes. That is one thing, and also the same classification also hold good as slab serif. Here the serifs are like a slab, like a brick. You can see the serifs are very big, unlike in this. So here it is very thin, and here it is very thick. So all these, Rockwell is a popular font of what is known as a slab serif. So all the fonts are classified into 5 things that we have seen: geometric, sans, humanist sans, then we have old style, we have transitional, and then we have modern, which includes both the slab serif and this thin serifs also. So these two put together also constitute that. So this is what we mean by the classification that we have seen. So geometric, humanist, old style, transitional, and modern has come under one category because transitional అంటేనే అర్థం ఏంటి, కొంచెం పాత తీసుకుంది కొంచెం ఫ్యూచర్ తీసుకుంది, అదాన్ని మోడర్న్ తో క్లబ్ చేసాం. And the other one is known as slab serif. This is what we did, and I wanted to give you the examples of these so that you are able to understand. Now, how to select which font? Okay, now we know what are the font families. So, for instance, please see here, Badoni is the name of a family. So, it comes under a particular category. It is named as a family. Okay, well, let me take, for instance, Garamond, for instance, it's here. Uh, so, how to select? Most of the time, one typeface window, that is one family, is sufficient. I will tell you, for instance, here. Uh, Always remember, for instance, Garamond is a family. Okay, and Garamond is a family. Every family has its versions. Okay, let us see. For instance, one Garamond. I will take a Garamond font and show you here itself what we mean by that. So one I'll type here Garamond. Okay, I'll get the font itself. So let me go to home and see if I have Garamond here. Yes, I have Garamond. Go to G. Yeah, I have a font known as Garamond. So I have put this in Garamond. Now every family, Garamond is a family. Now this is known as Roman. Okay, the same thing if I put, please see here, same thing I put, okay, I put here, same thing. It has a different version. What is that? I have got now, it's italic version also. Same thing, I can also do one thing. So here I can use, for instance, so we have got, for instance, every family has its versions, like Roman, like italic, like bold, like extra bold, or I can also have bold italic also. You see here, for instance, I can put this here and I can go to, let me first paste it, then see if I can have bold italic. Yes, I can have, and I can do this. Now you see here the difference between this. Maybe let me enlarge them slightly, increase the size, you'll be able to see them clearly. So here you see, for instance, how it has come. Garamond Roman, Garamond Italic, Garamond Bold, Garamond Bold Italic, or sometimes you can also have what is known as right. That is what we mean by the family and versions. So please remember, first we classified all the fonts into 5 groups. Okay, we have seen the geometric sans. We have seen humanist sans. Then we have seen old style. Then we have seen transitional and modern. And then we have seen slab serif. This is how we classified all the types. And it is better to use one family only. For instance, let us take, for instance, your business card or your visiting card. When you are giving it to a designer, what he will do is he will use only one family. So he will use Garamond as a family for the little matter that you give him. For instance, you are given phone number, you are given email address, and then he will say email will be in Roman, and then that email address will be in bold. Or you put your name X, so Purushottam, and then your designation as managing director. So Purushottam, I will use bold, managing director, I will use italics. So what did I do? I used the entire same family Garamond, but I used different versions. That is enough to make your card look elegant from design point of view, from appearance point of view. Let us assume that you use 3, 4 fonts from two, three different families. One font from, say, geometric sans, one from old style, one from modern, and one from slab serif. Please try to do that. Then you will find it is the most clumsiest and most confusing way of designing a particular card. So please remember that we try our best to maintain some uniformity, some elegance, some beautiful, some beauty, consistency, so that everything looks elegant, whether it is a visiting card, whether it is an envelope, whether it is a poster, whether it is a hoarding, whether it is a normal book, or whether it's newspaper, or whether it's a magazine, or anything. Next time when you see, you will find what I am trying to say is exactly matching with what exactly is happening in the practical world. So that is what I would like to drive home the point about this. And with this, we have actually now, so this is how we use it. Then we are actually nearing time. I have 4 minutes. And then there's one thing known as font economics. This is very important for all of you to know that font economics means sometimes the point size is the same. Let me just, for instance, tell you here. So I will just give an example to you here. So I use, for instance, Bookman old style. Very quickly, I'll finish this because we are running short of time. Let me take, for instance, Bookman old style. Okay, I have Bookman old style. I have here, and then I have selected Okay, I have selected a particular font. So this is the font I have selected. Let me see what is the font size of this one. Let me check up what is the font size. It is 30 points. So please see 30 point size Bookman old style and the same 30 point I will use. Okay. Same 30 point, but I will use a different font. For instance, I will use say Garamond. Okay. Let me take that. Okay. So see here, see how is it looking? So Bookman old style is 30 point. Garamond is also 30 point. Let us see whether it's 30 point or not. So 30 points, you see a 30. Okay. And you see here, Bookman old style also is 30. So let us assume that you as a PRO, you are publishing something. So this is taking more space, which means in your page, this will take 20 pages, whereas this will take 22 pages. Okay, because this is accommodate more letters. This is accommodating less letter. Both are 30 point. So don't think that point size is one thing and visual appearance is something else. So you'll have to be very careful because if you print that in Bookman old style, let us assume 12 point, your entire book. The book is coming to say 200 pages. But if you put it in Garamond, the book is coming to say 190, which means 10 pages difference per book. Suppose your each book 10 pages difference, and the cost of the book say is about 30 rupees or 40 rupees. Then if you save that many pages, paper is saved, printing is saved, and the same thing will cost. Here, the book will be thinner so that you can post it. It will be lighter in weight. So many economics is also involved. And so when a font is selected, say for a bulky book, like your annual report, and you're printing 10,000 copies, then you can see how a font can make a difference in terms of the cost of your publication also. This is very, very important for all of us to know, though it doesn't look like that. So if there are 10 pages more and a million copies, 10 lakh copies are to be printed, economically it might become expensive because, and not only expensive, the book becomes bulkier and heavier and many other problems of production will come up. At the same time, I'm not saying you should not go for Bookman or go for only Garamond. You will have to decide for every publication. No, you have to go only with Bookman old style. That's the font I want. Please go. But at the same time, tell your boss, sir, if we are going with this font, you are insisting on this font, it will cost more. But if your boss see, oh, double ఇంత తగ్గించండి పర్లేదు font both పోయింది. But both are equally good fonts. So you'll have to be very careful in selecting the font. So with this, we have completed unit 9. Unit 10 is pending. Tomorrow we will go ahead with the 10 that is known as proofreading. So we have discussed a lot about typography today. I will now stop sharing because the next person also could have been come by now. So let me go to classroom. So with this, we have finished. Bhargav is there, 2571 is there. I hope I have done my job. And now it's 11 o'clock and I am leaving. Thank you very much, all of you.